The observation deck of the Talon's Reach had never been designed for this. Commander Vyxtar stood at the entrance, mandibles clicking in what his crew had learned to recognize as bewilderment. Through the reinforced crystalline viewport that stretched across the entire forward section of the dreadnought, the Andromeda galaxy spiraled in magnificent violet and gold. But none of the 16 predator cubs inside were looking at it. They were all staring at Ira. The human child sat cross-legged on the polished deck plating, no more than 5 solar cycles old by Vyxtar's estimation. Her small hands moved rhythmically through the fur of the creature in her lap, a Terran feline, according to the databanks. The animal produced a sound that the translation matrix struggled to classify, a rhythmic vibration the humans called purring. Surrounding her in a perfect semicircle were the children of the galaxy's apex predators. Kiko, the eldest, crouched closest. The young Draxian scales shimmered with the deep crimson of her warrior lineage, each one capable of deflecting plasma fire. Her triple-jointed legs were coiled beneath her, ready to spring at the slightest threat. But she wasn't watching for danger. Her serpentine neck extended forward, golden eyes fixed on the small human's hands as they moved through the cat's fur with practiced gentleness. "She is not afraid," Kiko whispered in the standard tongue, her sibilant voice barely audible. Beside her, 3 Corthian cubs huddled together, their obsidian carapaces gleaming. They were born warriors, bred in the asteroid forges of the Outer Rim, where only the strong survive their first year. Yet here they sat, silent and still, watching a creature that massed less than a tenth of their weight. Vyxtar's secondary eyes tracked the rest of the brood. 2 Valkorian twins, their fur matted with the bioluminescent markers of their pack. A lone Scarian, its crystalline hide refracting the starlight into rainbow patterns across the deck. Even young Mortax was there, a Judicator cub whose species had conquered 17 systems before their 3rd millennium. All of them, transfixed. The human child, Ira, looked up. Her eyes were the color of Terra's oceans, impossibly bright in her small face. She smiled, revealing the flat teeth of an omnivore, nothing like the fangs and mandibles surrounding her. "Kiko," she said, her voice high and clear. "Do you want to pet her? She's very soft." The Draxian cub recoiled slightly, uncertain. In her culture, showing interest in prey animals was considered a weakness. But the human's expression held no judgment, only invitation. Slowly, with the careful deliberation of a hunter approaching unknown territory, Kiko extended one clawed hand. Ira guided it gently to the cat's head. "Like this, slow and gentle. She likes it when you scratch behind her ears." The cat, an orange tabby with white paws, opened one amber eye, assessed the massive reptilian claw near its head, and incredibly, leaned into the touch. The purring intensified that Kiko's scales rippled through the entire spectrum of Draxian emotion. Blue confusion, orange surprise, and finally, a soft pink that Vyxtar recognized as wonder. "It trusts me," Kiko breathed. "Of course she does," Iris said matter-of-factly. "You're being gentle." The concept seemed to shake something fundamental in the young predator's understanding. Vyxtar watched as, one by one, the other cubs crept forward. The Corthians extended their antennae, sensing the vibrations of the purr. The Valkorian twins took turns stroking the cat's back with surprising delicacy. Even Mortax, whose people had written treatises on the art of conquest, sat mesmerized by the simple act of a small human caring for an even smaller creature. "How did this happen?" Subcommander Trill 9 appeared at Vyxtar's shoulder, her voice pitched low. "The human delegation's ship isn't scheduled to dock for another 6 cycles. Emergency beacon," Vyxtar replied, equally quiet. "Their transport suffered a cascade failure in the Theta Quadrant. We were closest. They had 30 minutes of life support remaining." He paused, mandibles twitching. "The child's parents are in medical. Stable, but they'll need another day before they're cleared. The child needed supervision. So you brought her here? To the Predator Nursery?" "I brought her to the observation deck," Vyxtar corrected. "The cubs found her themselves." It was true. Ira had been sitting alone, the cat in her lap, humming a soft melody while stars wheeled past the viewport. The first to arrive had been Kiko, drawn by curiosity about the strange new scent in her territory. Within minutes, every predator cub on the ship had migrated to this deck, pulled by something none of their warrior parents could quite explain. Now, Ira was teaching them to be gentle. My dad says, the human child announced to her rapt audience, that the best warriors know when to be strong and when to be soft. Mittens here, she indicated the cat. She's a hunter too. On Earth, cats are predators. But she also knows how to cuddle and be peaceful. One of the Corthian cubs chittered a question in its native tongue. Ira's translator Chip rendered it. How can one be both? The human child considered this with the gravity it deserved. Because being strong isn't about hurting things all the time. It's about protecting what matters. And sometimes, what matters needs softness, not strength. The observation deck fell silent save for the cats purring that Kiko's scales had settled into a contemplative silver. Your kind are prey, though? Soft. Weak. There was no malice in her words, only confusion. How do you survive? Ira's smile was patient, far older than her years. We're not prey. We're humans. She gestured to the cat. We turned wolves into dogs. We made friends with animals that could kill us. We went to space even though we can't survive there without help. Her small hand never stopped its gentle motion through Mitten's fur. Being soft doesn't mean being weak. It means being brave enough to be kind. The words hung in the air like a revelation. VYXTAR watched as Kiko shifted closer, her massive form curling protectively around the small human and her smaller cat. The other cubs followed, creating a living barrier of scales, chitin, and fur. Not threatening. Protecting. Commander, Trill 9 whispered. The parents will want their child back soon. I know. But VYXTAR made no move to interrupt the scene before him. He was watching something unprecedented. The predator cubs of 16 different warrior species, many of whom were technically from rival factions, sitting in harmony around a human child who weighed less than their weapons. Learning a lesson their parents had spent millennia unlearning. That night, when Ira's parents, recovered and grateful, came to collect her, they found their daughter asleep against Kiko's scaled belly, Mittens purring on her chest. Surrounding them, a brood of predator cubs stood silent vigil, each one having learned something that day that would echo through their long lives. Gentleness was not weakness. Kindness was not surrender. And sometimes, the smallest, softest creature in the room was the one teaching the warriors how to be strong as the human family departed. Kiko watched through the viewport until their shuttle disappeared among the stars. Her scales shimmered with that same soft pink, and for the first time in her short, fierce life, she understood what her human friend had meant. The strongest warriors knew when to be gentle. And humanity, Kiko realized with dawning comprehension, had mastered both.